Hello and welcome to this jazz guitar lesson. I'm Chris Whiteman and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to look at Wes Montgomery's composition Missile Blues. It's a 12-bar jazz blues, riff-based primarily. It's got a repetitive riff, and then it has one little section that has a diminished scale run that's harmonized with chord voicings, followed by a little turnaround with some more voicings. So let's take a look at what's happening in the melody statement here. So we're going to start off with this riff that repeats 4 times, and it goes like this. It starts on D, up to G, and then I'm playing B flat and D together, back to G, and then we have C, E, and A moving down a whole step to B flat, D, and G. And that's the entire riff that repeats 4 times. So let's look at how it falls rhythmically, because it's a pickup into measure 1, and it starts on the end of 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 and 3. Right? And then it's followed by kind of like this response. If you look at the first riff as a call, then we kind of have this response of, so very simple, right? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 and 3. 4. 1 and 2 and. Now, what's interesting is that's the rhythm of the phrase for the melody statement at the beginning of the tune. So the very beginning and then the repeat, they play it twice. After the solo sections, after Wes's solo, they play the melody statement only 1 time, but Milman Ryan starts the riff in a different place coming out of Wes's solo. He actually starts it on the end of 1, and so it displaces the whole riff. Now, I don't know if that was something that was intentional or just something that kind of happened on the recording and they left it, but at the end of Wes's solo, the phrase sounds like this. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 2, boom, right? So just something to be aware of. All right, so after we play that riff 4 times, then we have a really cool diminished run. It's basically just the diminished scale harmonized. And so if you know how the diminished scale works, it's half step, whole step, half step, whole step. It's a symmetrical scale. So he starts on C diminished, C, F sharp, A, E flat. Then he moves up a half step, up a whole step, up a half step, up a whole step. I'm going to change my string set and move to the top 4 strings here. Up a half step, up a whole step, up a half step, and then he turns around and starts coming the other way. So down a half step, down a whole step, and then he moves down a minor third to E diminished. What we get is this. We get C diminished, C sharp diminished, E flat diminished, E diminished, F sharp diminished, G diminished, A diminished, B flat diminished, A diminished, G diminished, E diminished, and then it's followed by a G 6/9, E diminished, G7. And the run is all 8th notes, so it's moving pretty quick. And it starts on the end of beat 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And after that, we have a little turnaround, which is based on a 1-6-2-5, which is a common turnaround, right? So a 1-6-2-5 would be G7 to E7, A minor, D7. What he does is he does the G7 here, and then instead of the E7, he does a tritone substitution. So the B flat 13 with a 9. And then he makes the 2 chord dominant. So A13 with a 9. And then instead of D7, he plays A flat 13 with the 9. And since the melody repeats, the first time we play it, we have to get off that chord really fast because we need to get to the pickup, to the riff again. From the diminished run, it sounds like this. And then I'm back into my riff. All right, so let's put the whole thing together, and I'll play it a little bit slower than the record. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's the whole tune. The solo changes, he does play some sub changes. So the first chorus of the solos under Melvin Rhyne, they play kind of a standard 12-bar jazz blues changes. And then after that, they start playing these sub changes that Wes is so known for. So I'll show you those real quick. All right, so the solo changes, the first chorus is just standard 12-bar blues. And these changes are on the PDF for my Patreon subscribers. But after the first chorus, then Wes starts using some sub changes, which he does often on the blues. Let's look at those changes. So bar 1, we have G7. You know, when I say G7, that's the foundational harmony. You know, the voicings are always changing, so it could be G13. You could have a 9 on top. These aren't sub changes, these are just voicings, right? And then we go to bar 2, we go to the 4 chord, so some type of C7. Bar 3, we're back to the 1 chord. And then in bar 4, we'll do a 2-5, so some type of D minor to G7 to the 4, right? So that's like a 2-5 taking you to the 4. And then in bar 5, this is where the sub changes happen. Normally we'd either stay on C7 for another measure or move to C sharp diminished sometimes. This case, we're gonna move from C dominant to C minor, and then we're gonna add, like create a 2-5 at it. So C minor moves to F7. Then we move down a half step to B minor to E7, down a half step, B flat minor to E flat 7. A minor 7 for a full measure to D7, and then we have our final turnaround, G7, E7, A minor, D7, right? And so those changes will sound like this. So those are the sub changes that they're using. All right, I hope you found this information useful. You know, Wes is one of my guitar heroes, so I always learn something anytime I'm checking out, you know, his compositions or his solos. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.